Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the festival director and program director of Something Wicked Film Festival and Events. And welcome to our show. Now, tonight, or in general, this whole month, we are spotlighting films that are based on Valentine's Day, the time of love and horror, and those that we deem necessary in terms of Black History Month, since there are a lot of great horror films out there that focus on something like that. Tonight we will be focusing on the film Bones from director Ernest Dickerson, and with me to discuss this is movie buff, filmmaker extraordinaire Dave Watkins. So before we get started with our conversation, just a little bit of background information in terms of the film Bones. If you haven't seen it, it is one of the few films in which rapper extraordinaire Snoop Dogg is actually one of the stars of the film, and he's actually the main villain of the film. And he actually plays a drug dealer, a drug dealer who is wrongfully killed, and of course, somehow his spirit comes back to get revenge on the other people, the bad cops and whatnot who killed him. But in the meantime, he's also learning about what happened to his girlfriend and the daughter he did not know about. So, Dave, tell me, what was your impression of this film the first time you saw
So the first time I saw it was 2 days ago.
it?
But I got the disc. I ordered a Blu-ray from it's a Scream Factory disc, and it looks pretty good. It is a Blu-ray, but it is a 4K transfer of the movie. But as far as my impression of the movie, it's not what I was expecting it to be. I think we talked about it a little bit beforehand, so I wasn't quite in. But I was, when you think about it and just how much coverage that didn't get it very good coverage, so you don't, and I was kind of thinking it was almost going to, when I was going to watch it, I thought I was going to be watching like a direct to DVD movie or something of that nature. But it's really well done, and it's got some flaws, especially with the ending and stuff of that nature. But as far as like the movie's a lot better than you would expect it to be. It's got a lot of um I guess the production design is really cool, and the direction is really good. Even like Snoop Dogg's acting is unexpectedly pretty sharp, and Pam Grier as well in it, and she does a good job.
Yeah. So
And
one of the great things of see, I saw the film originally when it was originally released, and I saw it at the theater on the opening weekend with a bunch of friends of mine. And the thing was that when it came out, there just wasn't enough films that featured African Americans in them, and especially not that many directed by African American directors or people of color. So therefore, we were gravitated towards this one. Now, of course, in this same time period, we had a lot of these type of films coming out, so it was almost kind of a novelty thing. I hate to say this, and if he ever listens to this podcast, he probably hates me or will hate me. But I really hated Snoop Dogg when I was growing up. I did not like Snoop Dogg. I had to be dragged to see this movie at the theater by my friends who absolutely loved him. I hated him. I can't tell you why anymore. That was a long
yeah,
time ago. It was a I can't remember why I hate him. I love him now. Don't get me wrong. I went to his concert just last year. Me and my wife are huge fans now, but when I was growing up, did not want to see this movie. I had no interest in it whatsoever, but I was dragged to it by a lot of my friends. Now, that being said, I did know who Ernest Dickerson is because he had done Demon Knight, so I was familiar with his name. And my impression is a little bit of what you said about Snoop Dogg. He was surprisingly really well cast in this film as a drug dealer with a almost heart of gold type of thing.
right. And apparently, I was listening to an interview from the writer. One of the two writers is Adam Simon, I think. Adam Simon, who's pretty well known, right? I mean, he not well known, but he did do Brain Dead and Carnosaur as a director. But as far as in the movie The Player, he actually plays him a kind of character. He plays himself in the opening scene of that, where he's kicked out of a pitch meeting. But the writer was talking about Snoop Dogg, and it was Snoop Dogg like wanted to make a horror movie, and so that was how kind of how it started. It was like he was looking for a writer to write it, and the Adam Simon was originally going to direct it, but he was unable to when it came time. But but yeah, so it was, and he asked, they came in, he was just thinking Snoop Dogg is, he wants to, so he asked, what do you want to be? You want to be the hero or the monster? And Snoop Dogg's, I want to be the monster. I want to be like Freddy Krueger, sort of thing. But it's, and then that's an interesting thing because the way that it's approached from the writing standpoint, um, Adam was talking about it. The other writer was Tim Metcalf, who wrote, he wrote California with a K, with California with a K, not Californication. But he said they approached it more like a Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman type of movie. So that was kind of their original thoughts about it. They're kind of creating a new monster, and they do, and that's something that, I mean, it's kind of disappointing that they weren't able to continue with another one of these, because he does make a good monster, really.
He does. And I was a little surprised when I rewatched it, and I can now see why you were saying he might have been trying to make the next Freddy Krueger or something, because he actually has a lot of great little one-liners to.
Yeah. Some I was cracking up at some of them, really.
It was. When I rewatched it, for some reason I didn't remember it being as funny. Because it's been a while since I last saw the film. It's been a good decade plus since I originally saw. I mean, since I last saw the film, and I always enjoyed the film, but I hadn't seen it in a while. So when I rewatched it, it was a lot funnier. Me rewatching it now, me being a fan of Snoop Dogg, me actually having seen them in concert just last year. It was a lot. It was. I had a lot different experience watching this film now than I did when I first saw it.
Right. Yeah, and I think yeah, and it's funny because I was reading some reviews about it, and they were kind of criticizing it for the comedy. But it was funny because when I was watching it, I was like, I wasn't. I mean, there's the comedy is in there, but not until really like near like maybe three-quarters of the way into it did it like kind of go off the rails with the comedy. But it was fairly subtle kind of build up as it was going. It wasn't like comedy. There was like some of the characters may have been like a character who was saying some funny stuff, but it wasn't until he starts like, cutting people's heads off, and then the heads are still talking and things of that nature, that it kind of went a little much with the comedy. But yeah, so,
You know what? When I was rewatching it, and you mentioned the head of the one rival who gets cut off, and Snoop Dogg's Bones is making fun of this head head.
yeah.
Of course, the first thing I thought about was, I don't know if you've seen the show Santa Clarita Diet, in which Nathan Fillion plays the head who get for like I think 2 seasons where he's just a head.
That's pretty cool. No, I haven't actually. I'm familiar with the show. I think maybe I watched a little bit of the pilot episode, but Timothy Olyphant in it and Drew Barrymore and stuff. But yeah, it looks. I don't know. I never watched it, but it does look kind of like something I would like.
It goes a little crazy with the head, Nathan Fillion's head, who is just around.
Is he in it like the whole time, like in every episode?
Most of the episodes in the second season he is in. By the third season, they replace him with some other actor. So you kind of lose that little touch there.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah.
Well, Nathan Fillion had his own show. He went from one freaking show to the next show. He didn't stop.
I mean, I think if he's playing like a friggin' head, though, they could shoot around that. It's like, they could just add the head in later. But yeah, I mean that works really good in a zombie show, because zombie if they get their heads cut off, they're still alive. I mean, they're still able to talk, but depending on which zombie thing you're watching. But there's like no rhyme or reason to this when he cuts their heads off and they're still talking. I don't know. It's kind of goofy. I thought.
You are correct. It does change the tone, because that character itself makes a lot of odd comedic type of.
Which it's funny though. But if that was a zombie head, it would be hilarious. But at the same time, you're just thinking, why is his head like still talking? It's saying what brought that on.
It's just to keep his soul intact.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. I
That's
don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but it wasn't like the worst thing. I mean, it was fun, but it was just a little. I had some questions about it that weren't answered in the movie.
Well, think about it this way: when I rewatched it, I was seeing the implications in terms of police corruption, police brutality, and of course, the rivalry between drug dealers and stuff. And Snoop Dogg's Bones was old school, and his drug dealing and didn't want to bring in any type of new drugs and stuff like that. Almost like if you've seen American Gangster with Denzel Washington's character, who is like the drug dealer who actually has a heart, so to
Sure,
speak.
sure.
And so that made me and probably audiences at the time actually sympathetic towards him because until the end, he actually only reacts to a lot of the characters who either are people he's going to get revenge on or the people who like steal his ring and stuff like that.
With and also the people in the neighborhood who were drug dealing, like
Yes.
the two guys who were drug dealing. So they had to take those guys out too, just out of nowhere. But that was kind of like they had to do that too because that was part of his thing is he wanted to keep the neighborhood somewhat clean. He's
Mhm.
kind of a good bad guy, but he didn't want to go as far. They bring in this. I'm assuming it's some kind of crack, but it was some kind of like drug that was probably worse than crack. It seemed like it was almost like a it wasn't blue like on Breaking Bad, but it was some kind of like blue meth thing. But so once Snoop takes it, and that's almost what kind of causes his body to after they kill him, his body, I mean his soul to leave his body like that and retain and stay in the house and in the dog, I guess is what's going on with that. But
I found that interesting. It wasn't until I rewatched it that really that spoke with me. He literally a spirit leaves when they kill him, and then it more or less wanders the house, and except for the dog, I guess. And then of course, when he is resurrected, so to speak, his spirit or his soul comes back from under the dog and enters his body again. I thought that was an interesting concept for
yeah.
a soul to just be transferred to a black hellhound dog, and then of course it's
So
able.
something else is going on too, um, but I don't have a complete explanation for it. But the house itself seems to have I think it has a necropolis in it, like which is a lot of dead, almost like they refer to in the movie as a city of the dead when they go under the house later. But throughout the movie in present day time, you see that happening throughout the movie. So there's something more to it than just the dog and the transfer of the soul, because there's a lot of other like entities within the house, whether they be whether they are people that he killed, or they may have been there the whole time, or before. But
Yeah, I
there's
thought it too. I was like wondering if some of these weird, I hate to say the word spirits that linger, that you see throughout the film, it kind of throws the whole movie off a little bit because it's like, huh, you kind of it makes whatever world that the writers are trying to create bigger than what we actually see. Uh,
right. And there's actually some dialogue in the movie where the love interest, who's also Pam Grier's daughter, and Bones is the Snoop Dogg's character, Bones' daughter, when she's kind of talking about what that is, like, she says it in the dialogue, but at the same time you're thinking that maybe she's not, she says it directly in the script, but at the same time you're thinking that she's just talking in a um I don't know, like a figurative sort of way. You don't realize she's literally saying what she means. She like just comes right. It's
yeah, I get that because that character, I can't, I want to say, I don't think it's Bianca, but
the actress's name. Yeah, it is Bianca Lawson.
okay.
Yeah,
Uh, the thing is that Bianca's character is a weird character because she says all these things, but she doesn't believe any of it. She keeps
yeah,
going back to the house.
but yeah, her mom, Pam Grier's character, Pearl, is a psychic, and so she, I guess, like, that's why she would know those things to begin with, because she taps into it, and she's kind of heard it, her mom said it to her, so she's like you say, she probably doesn't take it to heart. It's almost like sometimes when your parents tell you a story like that, you might not think it's serious. You might think it's cool, or it's something that's there to it, but you don't take it serious. But I guess the thing about the movie, and it really focuses on this house, that in the house itself looks really bizarre. It's like uh, it was listening to some of the behind the scenes stuff, and apparently they had a facade made for the front of it to make it look like it does, because it doesn't. The house doesn't really look like that, which it looks has a really cool look to it. They describe it as looking like a face. It looks almost like a mixture between the Amityville house and some other things, but it looks very it's very striking, and it's funny. I actually noticed this because we talked about this is the third Ernest Dickerson movie we talked about. The locations almost always like that, It's like, he
You're
really
right.
likes that, yeah. But they go so, and like I guess the originally the movie was supposed to take place in chronological order, where the beginning of it being in the 70s, where Snoop Dogg's character is killed eventually, and then it goes to present day time where his one of the guys that was participating in the killing, his son, his two sons and stepdaughter and their friend come to the house, and they want to like revamp it and throw a party there. I guess the reason I guess it's kind of starting there was the flashback stuff. When they talk about it, like Ernest Dickerson and even some of the other guys, they think it should have been first, but to me I like it broken up, and
Yeah.
I also like it that you don't know what happened until later. It's almost like it holds back some information that you don't know. So that make and a third good thing about it is without that there would be a long period of the movie where you wouldn't see Snoop Dogg, right? Because he's the dog for almost half an hour or so.
Oh yeah, that's a good point to say. Plus, you wouldn't see some of the modern day characters until probably halfway through the movie. Huh.
Right, yeah. They would have had to cut it down, and I mean that's another thing. But it probably would have been like a 15-minute segment though if they put it straight in there. There were some scenes that were cut from it too, which would have made it even longer. But it probably around 15 minutes, and studio didn't like that too much.
I'm sure the studio, like most studios, want it to be fast, fast. It's a horror film. It's a
Yeah,
horror film, and they probably want the fast, 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 and gets to as many kills as possible. Which brings me to the next thing, which is our kills in this film are actually quite creative. uh,
yes, yeah.
I think the lack of our Snoop Dogg Bones character using guns like some of the other characters, and him using his switchblade makes for an interesting villain.
Well,
Uh,
he calls it a switchblade, but it's really a butterfly knife if you
yeah.
look at it. He just kind of
Only the people who know what a switchblade and butter knife, butterfly knife are.
switchblade sounds better though. If you just called it a butterfly knife, I mean, I'm gonna cut you with my butterfly knife.
But and now I can actually see your ideals with them trying to make another Dracula because obviously Dracula's ring and his cane are very important, and just like Bones, his ring and his butterfly knife are extremely important to him. And then of course, when the DJ, I can't remember the character's name, but the other DJ steals it, he's the first one to go. Uh,
Right. And it was funny when I was watching that scene, I was thinking like, man, just don't take the ring. I mean, how you going to take the ring? You're going to break his finger off and then take the ring. I thought it would almost been funny if the scene, if you started to think about doing it, and you went, no, 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 I'm just gonna leave it.
no appreciation for the past. They knew who he was and he knew what his legacy was, but he didn't care. He just liked the ring.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, what do you get? I guess maybe you could sell it, but if he's going to wear the ring that's been on a dead finger for like 20 years or whatever, it's like,
So that brings me to one of the things I didn't notice until rewatching it now is that the rebirth of Bones is so similar to the rebirth of Frank in Hellraiser. It almost is copy for copy. I was like, I never noticed it before and then I noticed it during this film. Someone
yeah.
gets killed, and then that is the gateway for Frank to come back slash Bones to come back in here. Of course, Frank has his soul, so to speak, but Snoop Dogg's
Yeah,
is.
yeah, I see that. I rewatched Hellraiser probably about a month ago, and you're completely right on that. It was looked pretty cool in this movie too, but I guess it went on that scene went on for a little bit longer in Hellraiser, but it is kind of Hellraiser like when especially from the first Hellraiser.
Yeah,
When,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And Hellraiser probably has influenced a lot of directors and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
that's one of the iconic things from Hellraiser. People may remember the box and they may not remember much of anything else, but they're going to remember the fact that somebody's dead body gets resurrected through the freaking attic floorboards when someone's killed on there, you know.
Yeah. It's yeah, and it kind of didn't keep going with that in the Hellraiser movies. It kind of didn't keep good continuity after the fourth one, but really,
Who cares
but
about continuity?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess too, like if you did that in every one of the Hellraiser movies, it would be kind of like a kind of downer. It's like I'm gonna watch this again, like
I know what's going to happen. It
yeah.
do it. Yeah, yeah. So, you brought up one of a cool thing also in the movie, which is the production design aspects. And not only is the outside of the building actually quite interesting, which Dickerson also did in his other movies that we've discussed, but the design on the inside is just as interesting.
Right. And it's funny too when they go so the four of them go into the and I guess I should point out one of the actresses, what's her name? Catherine is Isabel
Yeah,
was the main character in Ginger Snaps
yeah.
and the sequels. But she's the one that she's the only one of the characters who survives the movie really. Because and I think that because she's a stepdaughter, not a blood daughter of one of the guys that messed with it. And her mom also survives it because neither one of them were directly related to the mayhem that happened to Bones. But so they're going through the house, and I'm just thinking, and they say it in the dialogue a lot too, but can you imagine staying in a house that looks like that overnight? I mean, that it was like what? I mean, I wouldn't even want to walk in there, much less stay there a few nights.
Stay there a few nights to revamp it, especially when they go to the boiler room to turn on the furnace.
I'm thinking, yeah, when that happens, I'm thinking like, you don't even like the thing may not light, and then on top of that, you could die from the fumes because it hasn't been properly inspected. I mean, to me, it's like the best thing to done in that situation. If you want to redo it, you go there. I mean, and you work on it a little bit, and then you go back home, and you come back the next day. You don't sleep there at night. Yes.
But
Plus,
then,
and plus, it's like they have an unrealistic time frame about when they want to put on the show.
yeah.
Instead they should have been like, we're going to fix this up and get it ready first, and then schedule when we're going to put the show on.
Well, yeah, logic doesn't really play because once you even get a building like that, you have to get stuff approved
Yeah,
government before it. But that doesn't make for an interesting horror film.
sure. Yeah, no, 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 yeah. But it's yeah, but them stay. So they stay in the house, and then bad stuff happens. But there's like this one. So one of the brothers, not is he's asleep, and then the wall beside him opens up, and there's like all these people in different like kind of squishy stuff in the wall, and it's really cool looking. That's like one of the earlier parts in the movie that showed the city of the dead part stuff going on. But
Well, yeah, and the thing is, when I rewatched it, I kind of like was a little surprised by how often I'm still trying to figure out how it all fits within the context of Bones itself, when it could have just as easily been, I'm going out for revenge, his spirit is unrested, and that's it. But they had to bring in hell, city of the
yeah.
dead, and some of these other aspects that
On
I think.
the yeah, it went a little bit too far with it. I agree. I think too when I was watching it the first time, I did not know what was going on with that until I mean, there was like a scene near the end when they go into the basement, like they always and then they go into the basement part, and then the city of the dead appears, and she says, "Oh, this is the city of the dead." in the dialogue in the movie.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't to that point. At that point, I'm like, what's going on with this? And then I realized there was actually clues to it throughout the movie. But at the same time, I thought it was just like a shoehorn into the movie at that point because it was something that went over my head up until then. I thought it was just Bones like doing weird stuff up until then. But then I'm like, okay, there's something else going on here that's more than just the Bones character.
I agree, but I don't think the film actually delves into it enough. I think your impression of seeing it and like I'm a little confused here. What is all this stuff
Right.
on?
Yeah.
Is something that it still sticks with me because it's like, well, I'm trying to figure out why all of this is in there because it could have just as easily been something similar to what you get in the movie and story of the Crow. You don't need to see the City of the Dead. He is literally getting vengeance for from the people who killed him. Having all the hell and City of the Dead and all that. I don't know if that gels as well with me.
No,
I'm at,
I agree. I agree. I think it was. I mean, it could have been implemented into it better. Like especially if it would in the '70s scenes, if there was some kind of like clue about it already being part of the house during that part. But it's pretty when it shows the '70s scenes. There's nothing supernatural going on at all until he dies.
yeah,
Um, but there's a kind of odd thing about the pacing too, because it's not until pretty far into it that you realize it is. I mean, it's not I mean, until you realize it's a revenge flick, because it starts out with the four kids or teenagers, and it kind of follows them for like almost more than half the movie up until they resurrect Bones, and then once he's resurrected, it's at their party and then one of them gets killed, and then it's almost like a climatic end scene, like about 60 minutes into it or whatever, and then it's like the place catches on fire and they're all like outside and they're hugging and stuff, and then it's almost like that's like an end of a movie almost, but then after that it's like okay, now we're gonna Bones is come back to life and he's going to go after everybody who wronged him, and then it's going to eventually come back to the four main characters from the beginning, you know.
yeah. I felt that too. I didn't feel it. When I originally saw the film, I did. When I saw it again the other day, I was like, this is. It could have been just because I'm in a different mindset now than when I first saw the movie. But when I saw it yesterday or the day before, I can't even remember anymore. What happened to me was I like, oh, this we're following the four characters, and then there is a stretch when the whole film changes when when the building burns down and becomes a different type of movie. I and that could be part of the reason why it doesn't sit well with me as much as it used to when I was much younger. Um, I almost I hate to say this, I almost wish they had streamlined the story.
Yeah. Well, what the thing, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was interesting though. I thought that to me that made it a little less predictable in a certain manner because it did change, at some point. But I could see it as being a little, I guess as far as because I just didn't know where they were going with the story, and up until once Snoop Dogg came back to life as Bones. At that point, it's like a revenge story. He's going after these crazy guys that killed him. Um, and so it was like I kind of liked the build up before he comes back all the way. But I even liked. I mean, I even liked. But it is like it's almost like two separate sort of things.
Yeah, and sometimes it works.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you which ones. I do like the Snoop Dogg story aspect more than I do the young kids one. Unfortunately, because nowadays, there's been so many movies about. I hate to say this, young African American kids who want to be the next big musical artist. They have this big grand ideal that they're going. I mean, even the new House Party did something very similar too. They gotta make it the biggest house party ever. That whole thing doesn't really do anything for me. But the revenge flick aspect of it, I actually enjoyed more, and I wished at the time they had delved more into the whole the drug aspect and the police corruption and all that. That I think would have made a much interesting concept than having it be just a bunch of kids trying to do a club.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. And Ernest Dickerson was what he thought it needed more in there was the love story between Bones and Pearl with Snoop Dogg and Pam Grier's character. He said they had to cut a bunch of those type of scenes from the movie, but he said I guess there was more to it. I did see some of the deleted scenes. There's more scenes with Pam Grier and her daughter character. There's like about two or three more scenes that were. I mean, I don't know if they're really needed, but it did add more to their relationship and her trying to figure out who her dad is and stuff to that nature.
Oh, because she never tries to. I don't think she ever tries to figure out who her dad is, and that's not even a part of the story aspect of this movie.
There may be there's some talk about it throughout the movie in different scenes. I think she said something to her mom about it. But there's a scene where she's with so the Khalil's character, trying to remember, he's really like the main character, or the main good guy character. But she's with him, and she's telling her that she doesn't know who her dad is, and
Yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," and she's like, "I'm used to it. I'm used to it my whole life." But then there's a few other scenes where it's kind of implemented that she does really care. If you look at the behind the scenes scene, I mean the cut scenes, she definitely cared. You could see her like acting like really upset with her mom, and they were like screaming at her, trying to figure it out and things of that nature. But
interesting. Interesting.
I like the subtlety of it in the movie itself, and not the big drama scenes that are in the deleted scenes better, but
Well, I think it's one of those things where who do you follow? Was it Khalil or you follow Bianca's character, or who is the main character in the film that you're supposed to be following?
right. Yeah, and that's like, yeah, because it's yeah, there's not a clear answer to that, but I guess you could kind of think it's a little bit of an ensemble, but it's not really though.
That's where the two separate movies smashed
Yeah.
together comes in because, like I said, like you said, the second half is very much a revenge flick with Snoop Dogg. The very first half is really these four kids who want to put together the greatest music club in a poor part of the city to make something out of nothing, as he puts it. But
But so again, I guess back to the production design, what they do with the house and what they had to do, they basically start. I guess when they shot it, because they have to shoot it three different ways. There's like the 70s part,
Oh yeah,
which is
yeah.
looks very 70-ish, and it looked really cool. And then the part where it's completely like dilapidated in the kind of present day, and then when they cleaned it up to make it for the rave or whatever. Well, it's not really a rave. What would they do? And it's like a
It's a club. They're starting a new
club. Yeah,
club in
yeah.
in that neighborhood.
Right, right. So yeah, they're having they were doing DJs at a club, but so they had like three different stages of the house, and it's pretty cool how they were able to do it. Apparently, they shot the '70s stuff first because that was when it was the newest, and then they came in and really messed it up. And I guess from there they kind of made it look a little bit cleaner for the for the other part.
So
Um,
technically speaking, this is an like Ernest Dickerson's other film that we discussed, Demon Knight. It almost all takes place in the one fucking location.
yeah.
Just
Well, this movie though it branches out though a lot. It does have a lot in the house, but they do go other places.
yeah.
They go back to their house, like the three like I guess the three kids. I guess really all four of them go back to the suburbs where the dad is now in a very nice house in a gated community. Um, so there is that, and then at the end, not once Snoop Dogg becomes the main character, he goes to a bunch of different places killing people.
He does. And the thing is that some of these locations are extremely well done. But I like to talk about the production's design of the City of the Dead.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
the mural of souls that Bones eventually throws Lupovich's and the other drug dealers' heads into to suck their souls down. That whole and we got a little bit of it early with the one brother who can't see it in the backdrop kind of thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. That aspect right there, I really did enjoy. And the production design overall for everything that has to deal with the city of the dead, and those dream sequences, I thought were really well done because of how much care they put into the design of it all.
When I was when I was watching it, I was definitely thinking, wow, this thing went really big with these effects all of a sudden. It was like it just went like kind of like I mean, there was stuff going on, but it just went really, really to a different level suddenly. And then apparently like majority of the effects are practical effects, or very, very little CGI in the movie. You wouldn't be able to tell necessarily. I mean, it looks it looks a lot better practical than CGI. You can tell when something's CGI because you would see these people moving and they really look like they're moving. And that they apparently got some performers behind there just to put their faces through that stuff and move around. It looks cool.
Yeah. Oh, well, all of that stands up extremely well compared to some of the other visual effects in the film, where it's supposed to be a digital effect, and you might see a little ghost or a Snoop Dogg's face barely in the background, and then it disappears, where it looks kind of CGI
Well,
now.
it's not CGI though. He green screened it and just kind of overlaid it with the green screen. I was watching the behind the scenes stuff. That's what he was saying. It's like that for I know which shot you're talking about. Actually, I thought it looked there's like a shot where it looks pretty creepy when the daughter's inside the house helping trying to clean it up, and she looks around the corner and it just kind of like this weird like half person kind of there. It was like a green screen thing, and then they just kind of cropped it out. There's actually like something they did editing wise too, and they had to compensate for it while they're shooting it. They put a bleach bypass filter over the
Oh,
movie to make it more of a contrast sticking out. But it gives it a very unique look. But they said that it caused a problem with the blood because when you do a bleach bypass, it makes the blood look just black. So if you notice the blood in general, they had to really make it. He said the color of Pepto-Bismol, and there's like a shot in the deleted scenes that they hadn't done the bleach bypass on, and it looks like Pepto-Bismol, the blood does. But as far as in the movie, though, it's so red, it looks almost like blood from a Hammer movie or something of that nature, which I thought it was like, I mean, that's a cool throwback to a Hammer movie, but it wasn't on purpose. It was just because of the bleach bypass filter.
interesting. I did not know they did a bleach bypass on that. That's actually quite interesting to me now because I had to learn all that stuff when I took film class and we were still shooting on real film. I had to know all that shit.
Yeah, I went and it's funny. After I watched that, I went up and messed with the bleach bypass filter for a while just to check it out. I was like, that's kind of cool. It actually adds a lot of it brightens the image a lot when you put it on there. You can do it different levels of it. It's like this is kind of interesting thing to put on there. But
Yeah,
I didn't notice it so much when I was watching the movie because I mean, there's obviously a lot of other color grading going on.
yeah,
I mean, a bleach bypass does take out some detail on from the faces and stuff. But I mean, I didn't notice it when watching the movie. But maybe they probably only put it in there like a little bit, maybe like a 10% or something of that nature. But it definitely adds. I mean, it adds something to it though. It makes it look more of a contrast type of movie. The movie had a nice art direction and nice. I mean, even the bleach bypass filter had a nice feel to it.
yeah. Hmm. So, this is one of those films where you just watched it for the first time not too long ago. But what was how effective do you think it was as a because I know that for a while there we had this resurgence of this isn't like black exploitation movie, but it's something that was different.
I think too they did. I mean, they kind of embraced the black exploitation to it. They kind of like they didn't go that far with it. They kind of had this was a I guess this is sort of like a movie that was transitioning from black exploitation to what they now have a social commentary movie like Get Out. It was kind of like a transition type of movie where they wanted to go to social commentary, but they knew that they couldn't really do that yet. So they have it in there, but like it's not like the main focus.
And that could be why I keep thinking I wish they had done it differently, is because after seeing stuff like Get Out and the Blackening and some of the other movies now being made, I go back and watch this movie and I was like, oh, there's a little bit of it in there. I wish I had gone further. I think you're
Yeah,
right. I think you're right in that regards. I think they were probably just hinting at it because that's all they could, and then you had the studio or somebody saying we need to make this more mainstream and audience friendly, and so they had to go back in and re-edit it the way the film flowed with the 70s stuff and all that type of stuff, because I can see the influences of trying to make it a black exploitation movie, considering how much of the 70s stuff was supposed to originally be part of the movie, but they cut out a lot of it.
right, right. I think the writer he was talking about how, hang on a minute, was it the writer? But it was either him or Ernest Dickerson one. I don't think, but they were talking about how they were shooting at the house location, like the gated community house,
Uh-huh.
and there's a bunch of kids like in the neighborhood, and they were all into Snoop Dogg. A bunch of like white kids, and he was like, no, it was the writer. He said they missed their demographic because they were really pushing it towards African Americans when white kids really like Snoop Dogg, and it's like they were, that was, I think, one of the things he thought that the reason it didn't do as well, is because of that. I guess one of the issues I had with the movie in general is, I mean, the thing that I didn't like near the end of it, they really didn't stick to the landing at the end of it. They kind of messed the ending up,
Yeah.
and I think that's studio interference more than anything. But once like Pam Grier's character catching on fire, and that looked really bad. It's like, I don't know what, and then they kill him, or they think they do, and then they go outside, and suddenly the daughter is possessed by bones suddenly, and then a bunch of maggots come out of her mouth and spit. It's like a spit take, like from Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
Suddenly, and it's like I don't know what that apparently was a studio change. It ended differently. It was like I'm a similar, but I don't know, that ending was not where it should have been. I don't think.
No, no, I agree with you. When I rewatched it, I thought how odd that was because you think that they've vanquished Bones and that they're safe when they leave this thing, and then all of a sudden, I guess Snoop Dogg is still possessing her when he should have been vanquished, and then she spits out these maggots, or is it a blood thing? Who knows? Because they said Pam Grier sacrifices herself in the dress when you kind of wonder why she didn't just take the fucking dress off and light it on fire. And
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
and then with
you're right.
that dog, yeah, but apparently the dog at the original ending just had the dog, like they left, and then the dog like comes out. That would have been a lot better ending, I think. But
Especially if they're going to try and do sequels. I think you're right. I think that would have been they would have stuck to their landing in terms of the characters and still left it open to do a sequel with the dog. I think that would have been a much better. You're right. That would have been a much better.
well, I think they were there. I think that's the reason why the studio did it, is they wanted it when they wanted there to be a sequel, and then I don't know how they would have gone from there. I mean, how are you going to go from the daughter worms coming out of her mouth to, I don't know. It's like a weird thing. I mean, obviously it would have been a complete course correction on the sequel. That would never have like been how it stayed.
That's that. Yeah, you know what? I wish in hindsight, I do wish the film had done well because you're right. In the regards that this Snoop Dogg's Bones could have been a franchise starter had it been successful.
Yeah,
Even
I mean, and the way he did that character is just, it was cool. It was like Freddy Krueger or some other, other like horror icon. It could have been a horror icon.
Yeah, well, instead he went off to go do Snoop's Hood of Horror.
Yeah, yeah. Which I've never seen it. I don't know, but it sounds pretty funny. Right? Apparently, it's funny. Like Ernest Dickerson was talking about it in his interview about Snoop Dogg. He was like, the thing about Snoop Dogg, he's always blunted. Like he's always like high, you know. You couldn't tell in the movie, you know. You'd think his eyes would be red or something, you know. But
His eyes are used to it, dude.
yeah, no, yeah. You'd think it would be real obvious. He's like, it's funny though how he's like, and there's this one scene where had to walk through this fire, and he's like, if you don't mind, if you could just not, if you could wait to smoke until after we finish this scene, and he's like, so and then he did it. He didn't smoke until after the scene.
Oh, really? Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm going to listen to the commentary just to
Yeah.
hear some of these stories now.
Well, that one's actually there's an interview with Ernest Dickerson on it. It's an odd interview because it looks like so this disc it must have been shot around 2019 or 2020, and Ernest Dickerson looks significantly older than he does in the Demon Knight commentary, which was like just a few years earlier. But I mean, it's probably during the pandemic because he just seemed like he doesn't seem like he has the same enthusiasm as he does in the Demon Knight interviews. You know, but at the same time, he says this movie was taken away from him in post and then it re-edited. So he's probably, I mean, I don't know if it was that wasn't why his energy seemed low in it, but he still did a good interview there and it's worth watching. But he doesn't seem quite the same in that one as he does in some of the other interviews I've seen with him.
Oh, that's sad. I didn't know that. I did know that there was studio interference, but I didn't know that the film had more or less been taken away from him during post production. That's sad considering how well Demon Knight had done. I was like, well, he's
Yeah.
and yeah, it's sad. And
You hear about that type of stuff happening a lot. It's like especially with these horror movies, it's like you see like a director does something and it does awesome, and then even they go to do a sequel, and sometimes they don't even call back the same director. It's just like, they're just gonna like go on to get someone else because it's cheaper, or we don't have to pay this guy more.
it is. It's a sad state of the industry in general. Unless you own the actual rights to your character, then you don't have control over it, you know. And I'll get off. I'll just mention a couple of blatant, stories like that. Um, God, what's his name? The Sylvester Stallone's fight for the rights for Rocky, which he doesn't.
Right.
Erwin Winkler does, and he doesn't make any money off of this, and they can generally, he got pissed off when they were going to do a spinoff another spinoff with Dolph Lundgren's character, and he didn't even know that no one had ever talked to Stallone first about this whole damn thing.
Sure. Yeah. 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 They made up Stallone and Dolph Lundgren, but he was mad at him at first. He thought Stallone was involved with it. I remember hearing
Yeah,
about
and
that.
then of course there's the weird thing with shit. I'm trying to remember the guy who did the Child's Play movies.
Yeah. Geez.
Don
I forgot.
Mancini. Don
Yeah. Yeah.
Mancini, who
Yeah.
created it, and has been the spearhead of that entire franchise and the TV show. But when they decided to remake Child's Play, he had no say in it whatsoever because he didn't own Child's
Yeah.
Play. He owns Chucky. So therefore, they can do whatever the fuck they want to with Child's Play without him knowing shit while he's
Yeah.
off there doing
Yeah.
good shit with Chucky. Uh,
It didn't go too good when they tried to do that. It wasn't the best. But they do have a new 4K version of that one coming out though. Pretty soon. They announced it. The one with Mark Hamill doing the voice of Chucky. So,
remake.
yeah, but
Uh, I'm not gonna say it's a horrible remake. It just isn't an inspired remake.
I'm glad he was able to keep doing the show though, and use his because the thing with that Child's Play is very unique in that the same person did all of them, and he's keeping continuity with them. Even with the show, and but that's very unique for those horror franchises. Like when you compare it to Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. You know,
when
which
they're all taken away from you by the studio.
yeah, there's no continuity. Even like Halloween though, it's Halloween's got like three or four different timelines.
Yes, I put the Chucky franchise and the Phantasm franchise with up there with where the Don Coscarelli has control over that, except for Phantasm 2. He doesn't have control over what the fuck that Universal does with that, but he's pretty much the spearhead of that entire franchise.
Phantasm 2 is, I don't know. The Phantasm 1 is definitely the best one, but I like Phantasm 2 though. So James LeGros he was a good replacement, even though it was kind of weird, that they replaced the actor for one movie. But
Studio
really, the other two or the other three, is it three of them now? Yeah, I don't. They're so kind
five.
of.
Yeah, there's five movies
There's
altogether.
five of them. Yeah, I've actually had a hard struggle to get through four and five. The third one was okay, but then those last two they're just so I don't know. They go too deep into the dream. Like it's not. Is it a dream or it's not a dream? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard, But I really like the first one. I could watch over and over again, but
But you can't sit down and watch Ravager over and over again because it splits between possible timelines and keeps going back and forth between everything.
yeah, yeah. Um. Anyway, I guess we should get back to Bones.
Getting back to Bones, I was about to say the same thing. Getting back to Bones, are there any other thoughts that you would like to leave the audience in terms of Bones?
And me look at my I know there's some stuff I missed. I guess there's the one part where they kill Bones, and it's like a group of people. They kind of pull a Julius Caesar on him. The main guy shoots and makes them all like participate in his death, which is kind of an interesting thing they threw into it like that.
Yeah, and Bones needed more people to kill when he comes back on his revenge kick. But then again, with Pam Grier's character, he thrust the knife himself into her.
Yeah, yeah.
His love interest,
He
which
wanted to spare her the having to kill him.
yeah, yeah. So, and that's why I think Bones being like the main character would have worked extremely well, even if it had been the first half of the movie as well. Because you get to see so many facets of that character, but then it kind of, it's broken up a lot in flashbacks, and then it's only the second half where you really get to focus on his revenge part. So,
But that's another thing too that's interesting about it is that the way they have the flashbacks and they have these I think it's five, is it about five characters? And then they play characters in the present day and they in old age makeup, like all of them. And and it looks pretty convincing for the most part. It's like the that one cop, the white cop,
Upovich.
barely, yeah, yeah, and he's in a fat suit and he's like, it's like, but it looks pretty convincing. They got a nasty character too, it's just
Well, that's why I said I wish they'd done a little bit more with the whole thing about the police corruption thing. I think that would have added another facet to it. But they more focused on the fact that the other drug dealer, his rival, was thriving once Bones was dead. So
right. Yeah, he seemed to be the main person who was shooting though. But even though the cops seemed pretty trigger happy too during that meeting,
mhm.
but it was like those two, and then another character who was in the scene was his kind of bodyguard who dropped the ball completely, and he ended up having to participate in him dying. And he's like in the present day time, he's living across the street and watching the house, and he eventually has to kill him too. I guess he's the first one of the group that he kills, but he doesn't carry that guy's head around. He just the other guys he does. There,
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a deleted scene with that too, because when the guy's dying, he actually leans down and puts his hand on his head and sings to him as he's dying. And apparently they cut that because I guess when they're doing it to a test audience, they heard a snicker or something, so they're like, okay, we're gonna cut that. But it makes sense though that basically the guy was his bodyguard and he was kind of forced to have to participate in his death, just to save himself, and he's regretted it ever since. And so, but he doesn't take his head back and throw it into the city of the dead like everybody else.
Yeah, I didn't notice that till now. You're
Yeah.
right. Huh. Okay. With that, my final thoughts are, it's I would love to have seen this be expanded upon as a franchise. Like if they can make what four fucking Crow movies, they can definitely do another one of these. And the Crow had different main characters for every movie. They could have definitely done with another one of these. I think Bones could have been another one of the horror icons like Daniel
Chucky.
Woodbury in the Candyman movies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was mentioning Candyman earlier. It did have some kind of Candyman vibes to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
the tone of
but Candyman is like really the main thrust of the story in the Candyman movies, whereas this one, Bones, like he's like his revenge thing shows up halfway through the movie. I just
right.
think that if they had kept with that whole thing throughout the whole movie, I think it would have made for a much more dynamic film. That's my 2 cents. I'm still gonna watch it again, because I've now been inundated with the cult of Snoop Dogg by my wife, so it's all good. I have a great appreciation for the movie now than when I originally saw it when it first came out. Uh, but Dave, thank you for joining me on this venture through Bones and Snoop Dogg and Conversations in Horror. Everyone out there, please check out some of our previous episodes. We hope to have you join us again for future episodes. And by all means, make sure to have a great Valentine's Day month. And remember to see all the movies that we discussed, because if you've never seen Bones or any of the other movies we discussed, I'm hoping that you will go out there and watch them now with a greater appreciation. So with that, thank you all and have a good evening. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.